Hi, welcome to Behind the Badge. I'm Chief Alan Rodbell of the Scottsdale Police Department. With me is Chris Vassal, our community liaison. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chief.
Well, the summer has sort of blasted by us. I know we're still in the heat.
It's very hot.
It's very hot.
It'll be hot for a couple more months.
Yeah, but the kids are going to be going back to school this month.
August 6th, I believe, they start in Scottsdale. So in a couple more, well, now it's a couple more weeks, a week.
Right. So we always want to remind people when kids are out of school, be careful with traffic, but now we have to remind them that the kids are back in school, please be careful with the traffic. Mm-hmm. And yet still, pools are still open, so we still have to be mindful of the kids around the water. And any other safety things we need to talk about. Traffic will start coming back with a new season, so we'll start seeing more traffic on the roads.
Right.
So
yeah, the freeway will start getting a lot more busy.
Mm-hmm.
But month of July was really pretty slow with traffic, I thought.
Yeah, it was very quiet.
But you can see everybody was out of the heat. But again, remember, absolute speed in school zones, it's 15 and under. So just a cautionary note, and to watch children because they're going to be excited for going back to school, and it's just chaotic for the first couple weeks till everybody gets into their routines.
Yeah, and just be weary of distracted driving and the opportunities to take your mind off the road and what you're doing. And there's going to be a lot of people out there on the roads, either walking as pedestrians or driving. So please be careful. Yep. And we look forward to the season starting. It's going to get quite busy around here in Scottsdale.
Right. Then, of course, we gear up for all the events that come up and the great weather of Arizona, where everybody comes from across the country here, and, all the big events that we have in December, January, February. Citizens Academy starts in September again, so we're looking to seat the class. I have several applicants, and again, if you're interested, give me a call.
Sounds good. And you're online, right, to register?
Yes, and they can just give me a call, 312-1922, 312-1922. And I can get you what you need.
Okay, and starting date?
September 4th
'th
through November 13th.
Okay, so it's really important that people
11 consecutive Thursday evenings in the fall. It's always Thursday evenings in the fall.
Sounds good. Great. We're looking forward to that. We have a very interesting program today.
We're going to one we haven't had ever on the show.
Yes, and unfortunately, we should have done this a lot sooner. But
I agree.
People have a lot of questions when it comes to how you handle, prisoners and processing and how
jails
jails and all. And there's a lot of confusion about what is a jail, what's a detention, what's a prison,
right?
And how we work well with the courts in terms of how we operate the criminal justice system. Right. Unless you've actually had the experience, unfortunately, you don't always know what goes on behind the scenes to provide for public safety here in the city of Scottsdale.
Exactly, and the men and women who serve back there, and how difficult the job is, and to make sure that they do it correctly and that everybody is safe, not only the person that's in the jail but the employees as well, and the procedures and policies that they have to follow to accomplish that.
Yes. Why don't you introduce our guests?
I would love to. Okay, Sergeant Rasbar. She is our daytime sergeant at our District 2 jail, which is on our Civic Center, 2nd Street and Civics, 75th and Civics, right there. And Sergeant Bucks, right?
Bikes.
Sorry, Sarge.
That's okay.
And Karen Close, who is our city prosecutor. And we have our city prosecutor here with detention because people might be thinking, well, why would you have city prosecutor? Because the city prosecutor and the detention facility really partner on a lot of things that happen within the jail.
Okay. If you guys wouldn't mind, give us a little bit of a lesson in terms of what represents a detention center or jail that's run by a city, and what the county does in terms of running the jails, and I guess DOC, Department of Corrections, running prisons. Can you give us a little idea how we operate and what our limitations are? I don't know who more.
The city of Scottsdale, our jail right now is a detention holding center. That's what it's called, and we only hold people not more than 24 hours. And the jail is designed to, our jail is very small, and we don't deal with sentenced people. So whoever gets sentenced from the courts, we transport them down to Maricopa County Sheriff's Department, and they'll do their time down there. And we go from there, or we take any felony arrests, go down to Maricopa County Sheriff's Department also, at their county jail down there at 4th Avenue.
So when someone's arrested, they go through processing at our facility. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. So how does that work? So I'm a street officer and I make an arrest. I bring them down to the detention center. And what takes place?
Basically, we have a sally port. So the arresting officer enters the sally port area with their suspect. He's then walked to the jail. and there's a booking counter. And at this booking counter, we're asked the suspects certain questions, medical history. So it's pretty basic, but it gives us an idea if the person has any medical issues that may be an issue while they're short stay at our jail. Once that happens, this person is placed in a cell temporarily until the arresting officer completes his arresting module or documentation. At that point, he's taken back out of the cell, and there's a series of fingerprints and photographs we have to take within anyone and everyone that's arrested.
Okay. And so from that point, though, there's a process to how someone who's under arrest would be released. So what are the conditions in terms of how they leave that facility?
Or site release.
It depends on the case, on the officer. If the officer believes the person needs to be held in custody, we'll hold that person until the next IA court we'll have in the morning.
IA meaning?
Initial appearance,
Okay,
first initial appearance. And that all depends on the case. And if there's a warrant, and they'll be held on a warrant, they'll also wait for court, or they can have a choice to bond out. Also, we can do the bond process also. And we prepare all the paperwork for the courts, and we send all the paperwork to the prosecutor's office, and they come in and review all the on the docket. We'll have a docket ready for them in the morning, and they come in and review the cases and interview the individuals.
And then
every day.
adjudicated then, or then the judge comes in and sees them for those that a stay over might have a warrant or something that's a little heavier charge than not being cited and released.
Right. And those are misdemeanors, and then we deal with several felonies too, and that's all based on case of what's going on with the case of the detectives to decide to move forward with or keep in custody.
Okay. And just for our listeners that may not know, misdemeanors are lesser crimes, felonies are serious crimes.
Yes.
Can you give us a list of just some of the crimes or some of the charges that come through the jail? Do you have just a few? Is it theft, burglary?
Yes, ma'am.
Citations?
There's a wide range. You have burglary, you have theft, you have identity theft, you have something just as simple as speeding.
If it's a
suspended
criminal
driver
speeding,
license.
if it's
Yes,
suspended,
ma'am.
okay.
A suspended driver license. So there's a wide range of individuals that we actually get into the jail.
Oh, yeah, I guess we see everything.
Domestic
Definitely,
violence
yeah.
cases.
Domestic
violence.
We do
Even
all-
up to, I mean, we've had murder
This
Cases
is
and
point of
shootings.
entry into the
shootings,
system. Yes.
robberies,
Yes, ma'am.
violent
Arson
crimes as
crimes.
well as property crimes that come through.
Kidnapping. We have several of those cases.
Okay.
And sometimes you have all those people in there at the same time.
Yeah.
So you have to manage, you get a tremendous job of managing people, making sure people don't necessarily have inappropriate contact with each other, keeping people maybe involved in the same case separated so there's no messing up the evidence
Right.
and testimony in court. I mean, so there's a lot of moving parts in the facility. Maximum number of people that you guys can deal with at any given time?
That varies, sir.
Yeah.
Janet works day shift, so their volume is not what we have on night shift as far as people. And then the shift that I work, my volume may not be the amount that the weekend shift may have. So the
Sure.
weekend shift, you get more people, intoxication. So it just varies. So we've had quite a few people in
And it
the
also
jail.
varies on the full moon too. You think I'm crazy, but I'm not,
know,
doesn't
there's a
it?
lot
That
of truth
full
to that.
moon thing, there's a lot of truth to that
There
full
is.
moon thing.
So, and I'm sure as they watch the video, they can see that it's not a particularly large facility.
We're
It's
very
not-
small.
Yeah. How many cells do we have?
We have 8 cells, and we took some bunks out to make more room in there to hold people more. And that's why we do so many transport. We have to keep the people in and out of there as smoothly as we can. We do 4 to 6 transports a day to the
Wow.
county.
So a really important partner with us is the
Absolutely.
court system. And so our city attorney's office is separate from the police department. A lot of people don't fully understand that. They think it's just part of the police department, but they really represent the case and presenting the case to the court. And so Karen Close is here as a prosecutor's office. And Karen, I know you guys work closely with the jail in terms of those initial appearances and arraignments. And so if you kind of explain to the audience what that looks like, that hopefully never had that experience before.
Right. The prosecutors see people in custody on a daily basis, including weekends, on two different levels. Either people who are being currently held in custody on a bond and are transferred from the county down here to try and handle their case. We work those cases, but also the new arrests. Anyone who was arrested last evening and is being held to see the judge this morning, either on an existing bond or on a brand new case. In the morning, the prosecutor's office, first thing we do when we come in is we receive information from the jail about what arrests took place last evening and what those cases look like. We immediately start working those cases from a victim contact position. We start making contact with victims, reading the reports, reviewing criminal histories, anything we need to know, so that first thing in the morning then we can go over and try and either resolve those cases if we're able to make victim contact and maybe get our case completely ready. We might be able to make a resolution with the defendant that day. If it's a bond case, there may already be a resolution waiting for them. We just need to be able to have contact with them. If there isn't a resolution or there's a reason why we can't move forward at that moment with the case, then we're there to present to the judge any type of information that the judge might need to determine release conditions. Should the defendant be released on his own? Should there be a bond? Should there be release conditions that might be important for victim safety or for public safety?
Can you just explain what a bond is? Because they see like a lot of these movies, and it's kind of, just explain what it really means.
A bond is a secured amount that the court can set, and the court can make determinations of release for anyone who's being held on any type of a crime, from misdemeanors all the way through felonies. And the judge can make a determination on if the defendant is released from custody under what terms. And one of the terms that the judge could put in place would be a money amount, a dollar amount that the defendant would have to post, and that's to secure his reappearance in court, to be sure that he'll follow the directions as the court gives him with regard to victim contact or with regard to leaving the state or any of those things. And a bond amount is determined by the judge appropriate to the case that they're looking at.
Okay.
And so from that point, obviously officers prepare their cases for court, and your job as a chief prosecutor is putting those cases, representing the state in court for those cases. And so a lot of times people don't understand, the officer, I didn't really do it, and I got arrested for it, and I'm going to court for it. But I really didn't do it. But the difference between arresting somebody on what's called probable cause, which is in the Fourth Amendment, the facts and circumstances which allow reasonable people to believe that a crime was committed and someone committed that crime, isn't beyond a reasonable doubt all the time, which is what's required in court. And so your job, I suspect, is to look at what the arrest was based on and see what evidence exists to see if, in fact, beyond a reasonable doubt exists to take a case and have successfully prosecuted in court. And so at what point do you get involved in that process? Not here, certainly. This is the beginning stages of someone's processing through the system.
Right.
That process occurs after that. So
that's something that, we start looking at as prosecutors, and sometimes to the displeasure of the police officer we're dealing with. We start that process immediately because as prosecutors, we have a totally different standard than police officers. You're right, on the street, the police officer has to have probable cause to believe the crime was committed and that this person committed it. And in order to make an arrest and to bring the charges, for my office to continue forward, our burden is that we have a good faith belief that we can win the case, that we can in fact prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this is the right person, that the crime was committed. So we start immediately looking at that evidence as it's coming in. What did the police officer report to us? What evidence do they have? And we make contact with victims. Can we continue to proceed forward? And all of that comes into play with our job then of, can we make a resolution offer? Can we argue bond? Should we continue forward with the case? Should we release? Should we make a recommendation that he be released on his own recognizances and then come back at a later time and we'll continue forward with the case? So that information starts immediately for us.
Thank you. And not to start any controversy, but I think for the viewing public to understand, how are we handling people that we arrest for criminal acts that end up being undocumented visitors to the country? How do we handle it in Scottsdale as we process our prisoners?
The arresting officer will make contact with immigration, and they'll call them and they'll verify if this person is here. legally or not legally, and then they'll interview the person on the phone, and then they'll either provide a detainer or not. They'll tell us to release the person, or they'll provide a detainer, and then we'll either immigration will come to our jail to pick them up, or we'll transport them to immigration.
Okay, so that really is not our decision. We process them as a prisoner for the case that's in front of us.
Yes.
That's our case.
That's
and then
correct.
we involve the federal authorities, ICE, to make a decision on whether or not what that status that person is. If we would release them on our charges, because I suspect sometimes our charges would be big enough that they wouldn't necessarily be released
Right.
and be held for our charges.
Right.
Yeah, that's a sort of a misunderstanding about a lot of people about who has what responsibility for that role.
It's the immigration's office.
And then the thing is like when I think people see you come through a jail and you get arrested and you get released, that doesn't mean that it's over. It means that they have to come back to court at a later date or something. This is just the beginning of the process. So if they came in as a DUI or somebody that came in for drunk driving, they get initial, they might have to stay over if it's more than one offense, or they might get taken to county, or they might get released, but that doesn't mean that it's over.
Correct.
Right? Because then they still have to go to trial and everything else. So just so people understand, it's a process.
That is true, and that initial appearance, the judge is telling them what the charges are, telling them what release conditions are, if there are any, and putting them to a new future court date. The one thing that we've done with our jail court process, though, is if in that morning we can in fact gather all the information that we need, we may in fact be able to present to them, as I call a resolution, a plea agreement, or an outcome to their case. We don't in every case, but if we can, we do our best to see if we can in fact wrap that case on that particular day.
I got it. And then that it's over.
Then it would be over.
And so that kind of helps the burden of both departments holding and the city saving money for the city and everything if it can be adjudicated right there, right?
Correct.
Okay. DUIs. I mean, we certainly see a lot of DUIs in our center. And so in terms of that process, what does that look like?
Now, the DUIs we handle them pretty much the same way. Most DUIs are cite and release unless they are out-of-state residents, and at that point they are held on a bond because there again, we're basically securing monies for them on their promise to appear in court. Most DUIs are cite and release, but they have to have someone responsible over the age 18 to come down and pick them up or release to a taxi.
Okay. But there's a blood draw taken. And where's that taken at?
It's at the jail.
Okay.
We have officers who are certified to do blood draws, and they do it. We have a room designated for them to do the blood draws right there.
Okay. And so before we cite and release, they're going through they're being processed, and so they're getting in some people's minds, cite and release is on the street, you write a ticket and
Right.
they're gone. But clearly there's a process you're going to go through before you're going to go home.
They have to
Yes,
all
yes.
get fingerprinted and photographed. It's
Okay.
mandatory,
Yeah.
state law, for them to get processed.
And then I realized that in the jail you don't always have people that are in their right minds. They might be on drugs, they might be on alcohol, they might be on bath salts or whatever that they inhale, which can make them not in their right mind and can be violent. And I know we have certain systems within our jail to protect them as well as the officers. Can you touch on some of that?
Yes, ma'am. We have some designated cells for people that come in combative, people that come in want to hurt themselves. And once we've identified the situation, we'll place in a safer manner, place that person in that cell and make sure we have observations that we have to, security walks that we have to conduct throughout our shifts anyway. So we keep an eye on those people pretty well.
And there's usually cameras everywhere around the
Cameras
jail.
24/7. We have also PCIS who works for the city. They come into the jail and also do assessment for these people for
So you have
us.
to explain PCIS.
It's Police Crisis Intervention Services. I believe that's what it stands for. And they're mental health personnel, and they're expert. They're great support for the jail because they come in and help us and do assessment on the individual, and they will determine if they even give people rides home. They're very helpful, and they may even know the history of the people who's in the jail who needs their service, and we just they'll be able to contact their families, and because sometimes the people who have mental health issues cannot communicate with us very well, and it's very a hard situation, but we have a great service. They have a great team that help us with the jail.
We've had them on the show before. They are they're master's level counselors that actually work within the police department as a huge resource, and I'm very, very proud. Long before I got here in the 70s, Scottsdale had the foresight to create that kind of program. Yeah, and those programs are all over the country now, and oftentimes they don't work for the police department. They may work for some other health department in that local government, and they work in partnership. But here, they're part of our organization, and they're just fabulous. And so very, very proud of them. So thanks for the shout out, because they are a huge resource for us.
They were very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that.
And then obviously we also have some instances where there might be juveniles in the jail for something that they committed. What are the rules about having a juvenile in when there's a felon in or an adult at the same time? Do we have specific rules for that, or male and female for that matter?
Yeah, juveniles are sight and sound away from any adults. And although we're a small facility, we really go over and beyond to try to keep the separation. They're only held no longer than 6 hours. So within those 6 hours, the officer has to, one, contact the parents, or two, determine whether or not that they have enough charge to take the juveniles down to Seth, which is a juvenile facility.
Okay, so you do have, and you have in the past then obviously transported a juvenile if the charge was serious enough or a felony to a facility like the county would be for an adult.
Yes, ma'am.
Karen, do you have a role in that at all in terms of determining whether the juvenile is held over or released?
We don't really deal with that at that stage, because it's usually within the jail itself to see whether or not they'll be released. If it's one of our cases, most likely they're going to be cite and released. If they're going to move on to county, then we're not a part of that.
And so do we contact Child Protective Services or some other agency to make a determination of whether we're going to hold on to them?
No, we don't do that at all. The officer will determine what kind of release they want to do with the juvenile on a case-by-case basis.
And I guess I'm sure that would matter with what the crime is,
Oh,
right,
absolutely,
Chief?
yes.
I mean, and if it's a misdemeanor, if it's
contacting parents are
one
refusing.
felony, two felony, whatever it is.
No status offense can come in their jail. So if
Okay,
they
now
get
you have to explain status offense.
status offense are like having cigarettes or truancy, not a criminal crime.
Wouldn't be a crime if they were an adult.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And so though they're not coming in.
They're not coming in the
Where are
jail.
they going?
Most times, the arresting officer contact the parents at the scene.
Okay.
And the parents come get them.
That's correct.
And so they cite, that's a perfect example of cite and release.
Yes, ma'am.
Because they still are going to be in the system eventually with some part of our prosecution office, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So there's a separate juvenile court or family court?
There's a separate hearing set aside for juveniles. When juveniles are cited into our court, they're cited on a different day than adults are. Adults are arraigned in our court 4 days a week at 8:30 in the morning. Juveniles are arraigned on Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock. So they are in their own calendar, so that it's just them and their parents who have to come to court. And we do that for a couple reasons. Obviously to keep them separated from adult offenders, but also because they go to school. We try not to interfere with their school day, and so most of our schools are out by about 2:30 in the afternoon. So that 3 o'clock court setting, hopefully they're not missing school. They come in, and that's when we meet with the prosecutor's office and try and see if we can adjudicate their cases.
Sounds good. And some of the other things that you all do for us is that you actually sometimes go out on the road. And you do transports, obviously, but sometimes there are big events. We actually set up a temporary facility. So at the Open, for example, every year, you guys are on the property, and we are literally taking people through the process at the golf site. It's a little away from where everybody's at, close to where we set up our police vans and what have you, our vehicles. But how much activity do we usually see any given year at the Open? or any other activity you might be at?
That it varies, sir.
Yeah.
And it depends. The closer to the weekend, the more arrests we have, or the more people, the arresting officers are determining whether to walk them out or to arrest them. But I think the mobile site has been a tremendous asset as far as getting people processed right there on the scene, as opposed to bringing them down to the jail. Now, there have been situations where the persons are uncooperative, so they need to be taken down to the jail to be processed in that manner. But most times, if they're cooperative, especially at the open, we'll process them there at the mobile site.
And so if we were to guess what percentage of any of that silly activity involves alcohol, it'd be safe to say 100%. So it's not unsafe, it's just silly stuff going on that happens when you have that large a crowd and not everybody's there to watch golf. But it isn't just there also. You help us out tremendously at the DUI, all the DUI task force, when we separate, we set up in the field for all the visiting agencies that assist us to respond and help out. So you guys leave the building sometimes and literally help us out on the streets, and that's tremendous. I don't know if you all have a role there or not at those events.
We usually are not on the road in that situation. Sometimes the prosecutors will go to like a DUI task force, mostly as an observer, because I think it's important sometimes for prosecutors to understand what the officers are doing on the road and what they're dealing with. And ultimately, we're going to present that evidence in court. And for us to say something like he performed a field sobriety test, it's nice if a prosecutor has watched an officer actually perform a field sobriety test with someone and be able to present that evidence best in court.
So I present that because watching this, and suddenly I'm not taken to the jail that I saw in the video, I'm taken to a van somewhere. What's happening to me? The fact of the matter is sometimes we set these makeshift detention facilities up for folks just as a convenience for everybody involved.
And it's a budget-saving cost for our citizens. It saves time for the officers and the prosecutors, and it actually saves a whole bunch of time for the offenders as well. So
very efficient.
It's definitely a lot more efficient in doing that.
Yeah.
We don't have the space for it.
That's true. Those big events, you're right. And it's a very good point. Well, I want to thank you all for being part of the program today.
It was great.
We've never done this before. Give folks a chance to see what it looks like inside. Does the Citizens Academy do a tour of the facility?
Do.
Okay,
We
so
do,
anybody that's
actually.
interested could get a tour themselves.
Like really a tour, like inside. We'll even put you in the cells if you want. But yes,
of course,
we do
if anything
that.
serious is going on at the time,
And
we're
we
going
don't
to
do
not
that.
do that. But
we don't mix you in with felons,
Yeah.
but we will put you
and then
in
forget
there.
we put you there, right?
Yeah, we just leave you.
Yeah, we count. We get
If
back
you're
on the
bad
bus.
in class, you're stuck there. You're gone.
So if you want to see more, there's obviously an opportunity to see what this looks like. And I want to thank you for all you guys do.
Thank you for
the
having us.
partnership with the courts and the prosecutor's office. Thank you so much. We couldn't do what we do without your support. So thank you for that. And thank you guys for all you guys do for us in terms of processing prisoners and getting officers back on the street doing what they need to do. So you guys have been terrific guests. Thanks.
All right. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having us.
So there's another program
Yep.
which puts us into the next
September.
month. Oh, my goodness,
Yes,
it'll be before
already.
you know it. So that season we talked about is just
And
around
then
the
Christmas
corner.
will be here before you know it.
Thanks. That just about takes care of my life. So thanks for that. Okay. Anyway, listen, you all be safe, and thank you very much. And
Thanks.
we'll see you next month. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.